Wow.
Right on time.
What?
Right on
Impeccable
time.
timing. Welcome, Flower.
Told you.
She really, she's getting into character. She's using that super sprint to get here.
Now,
Just
Here
in
I
the nick of
am.
time.
You didn't
Now-
think we let you have all the fun with Peter Duncan, did you?
Yes.
now, Flower, tell me, is it because you were booting your computer?
Yes, actually.
I'm getting you an SSD for Christmas because I can't stand the fact that you're on a hard drive. I can't stand the fact that anyone's on a hard drive. I legit bought my sister as a birthday present an SSD for the computer she was building because I cannot stand anyone having a hard drive for a boot drive.
To be fair, I could have turned on my computer earlier. I was just caught up with stuff. I just didn't think of it until like, oh yeah, it's not on right now.
I legit finished a live stream like less than an hour ago. Oh man, that was a good stream too.
Oh, I bet.
I'm gonna post a clip of just the most redonkulous shot.
Oh boy.
So this is like a 200-meter kill on a guy. I'm gonna post it in Cat Carrolled.
Okay.
200-meter kill on a guy. one bullet head tap all the way across, and I think it goes through a metal barricade too. Oh man. I had a bunch of just dope kills that stream. And then yeah, I rushed to McDonald's to get food, and I made it back on time. Hello, Dark Xana.
He was really cutting it close.
Dark Xana doesn't even know the half of it right now.
Yeah.
Woo!
Nice shot.
All right, so guys, my money is on this chapter being about Jeremy.
Whoa.
I mean, probably is. If I remember, this is like the part 3 of the Xana Awakens recap, or almost borderline AU. I don't know.
Chapter 6? I'm not human.
Yep.
It is clearly a chapter about everyone's favorite character, Bringa Ehrenstacher. Obviously.
Yes. Bringa, see, that's my problem with Chronicles, is Bringa just shows up out of nowhere and she just takes over the whole story.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
But, listen, if you told me that, I for a hot second I genuinely believed you. That's how Chronicles is. I genuinely believed
when Jeremy straight up realizes that he should have RTTP'd odd showing Brynja the supercomputer.
Yes.
This character does have someone similar to Bringa. She's handled a little bit better, but not by much. Well, there is one aspect of her that makes her much more interesting, not because of her character, but because of what happens to her. You'll see. I think that'll actually come up. I think we're gonna meet her.
Why does she have 3 chapters named after her today?
Because reasons, I don't know. Each chapter is literally called Eva Skinner.
Whoa! Spoilers.
Sorry.
I can't believe it.
Such much original. Big wow. And how is our lovely set of regulars doing today? Nick,
how you?
Nick 2 Electric Boogaloo and Dark Xana. How are you guys?
Yeah.
Can we all agree to just always look at him as Nick 2 Electric Boogaloo, because that's what it should have been. He was robbed. Oh my gosh. Nick, tell me.
You see,
Is it the 10-piece nuggets? Is it 10-piece nuggets? Is that what you got?
If you were, if you were getting, if you had Dylan get you McDonald's, you'd have already had it by now because he's just super fast.
Okay, Wazy, we don't need to.
Got a snag.
So today we're going through 6 through 14 from I'm Not Human to an
Yeah,
Unexpected
are
Journey.
they all like really short?
Yeah, so for some reason the chapters that get into like the backstory of like, you know, that recap the original series, they get really long, but then everything else is just pretty short.
Everything else is sort of a bog standard.
And
chapter
the
emo.
flips back and forth between the characters and other places, those tend to be really short as well, like really, really short. The other books are a little bit better about the chapter length consistency. But yeah, that's why we're getting through like last time we did like 5 chapters. This time we're doing like 9. Yeah, like 9 chapters. This is why we can't say we're reading 5 chapters a week because like it's super inconsistent. So
Yeah. I guess just whatever we have time for.
yeah,
Whatever.
Leave it at that.
All right. Well, it's apparent Cam isn't going to show up again. His loss.
Can't believe it.
So
Can't count on him for nothing.
So I say we get things a rolling.
All right.
Everybody mute up.
Oh.
Chapter 6. I'm Not Human. City of the Iron Tower, France, some time ago. Time. They needed more time. More time to understand who or what Xana was, and to understand who or what Aelita was. The boys returned to their everyday lives, and to their usual term time activities. Lessons, homework, avoiding all the stupid little social cliques. But at every opportune moment, they would meet in private, discuss the great secret of Aelita and Xana, and how they related to Lyoko. The strange virtual world that they were gradually getting to know, and yet which still seemed shrouded in so much shadow. The way Jeremy had attempted to clarify the situation was that Xana was some kind of insane computer virus and that Aelita was his natural antivirus. But that was not enough to explain everything. To tell the truth, it barely explained anything. What were the towers? Why were there so many of them scattered across the 4 sectors? And what of the surge in inexplicable electronic phenomena that seemed to correlate with the reactivation of the supercomputer? Light bulbs that exploded without warning, stereos and printers that came on by themselves, televisions that emitted spurting blue flashes before burning out as lifeless husks. Was there a connection between these events and Lyoko, and were the 3 of them simply becoming paranoid? Time. They needed more time. And maybe, in the course of time... Jeremy lifted his head from the supercomputer's control console, eyes rimmed with black, his attention diverted away from this train of thought. "And who is she?" And who is she? He reproachfully asked of Ulrich, indicating towards a girl who was standing next to him. She was slowly taking in the room around her, eyes wide in astonishment. In truth, Jeremy had already recognized the girl, at least in appearance. He knew that her name was Yumi Ishiyama, and that she was 1 academic year ahead of them. His friend glanced downwards and blushed slightly. "Well, you see, she followed me here. I found her nosing around downstairs." "In the scanner room," the girl finished his sentence for him. Ulrich had the good grace to look embarrassed, while Yumi seemed militant. Jeremy grunted in annoyance. "So you've told her everything, right?" "I've not told her anything at all." "And so she happened to just show up here, then?" "Men!" exclaimed Yumi. "Since when did any of you know how to keep a secret? Come on, I want to have a chance inside this Lyoko place as well." "It's dangerous. Do I look like I'm afraid?" "And it's not really a place for a girl," Jeremy grumbled, feeling exhausted. Yumi indicated towards the computer screens. "Oh, really? Ulrich told me there was already a girl inside it." Jeremy directed a withering glare at his friend. "Well, perhaps I did tell her a little bit, Jeremy, but..." That poor girl is probably sick of only having 3 little boys for company," Yumi continued. "I'm guessing she'd enjoy having another company around to confide in. Another girl around to confide in." "Give her a chance, Jeremy," intervened Ulrich. She's more than just a girl. Yumi's as good a martial artist as any guy I've seen. Put it this way, if I'm a samurai, then she's worth 2 of me. Yumi shot a glance at him that had the intensity of a lightning bolt. But Jeremy was no longer paying attention. Instead, he was considering that the sudden appearance of Yumi, rather than an unfortunate accident, could be considered a timely opportunity. Perhaps she was right. Maybe the virtual girl would find it easier to relate to someone of the same gender. Maybe, despite the fact that he and Alita were becoming wonderfully attuned to the other's moods and needs. Jeremy nodded his assent, if a little brusquely. If you really care about it that much, then you'd better get ready. The scanner closed around Yumi in a tight embrace. Then there was a sudden light, and a gust of hot air that seemed to come from all around her blew her hair skywards. Yumi found herself materializing onto Lyoko wearing a traditional kimono secured with a deep and tight obi sash, knotted at the back into a rigid bow. Her hair was tied up, fixed in place by hairpins. White makeup had been applied to her face in the manner of a geisha, and in her hands were 2 Tessin folding fans with razor-sharp edges. She and Auric had appeared in Lyoko's desert sector, flat dunes interrupted here and there by rocky outcrops, an environment so empty and desolate that it left one quite dizzy. But Yumi was dizzy enough already without the help of the landscape. It was fair to say that she was a little disoriented. "How are you doing?" Auric asked sympathetically. "I'm fine, I think." "The first time's the hardest when it comes to finding your feet here, but that kimono really works for you. You look amazing." Yumi did not reply. She took a few hesitant steps, feeling a ringing sensation inside of her head. "It's all because this isn't real," she thought to herself. "That's why you feel so lost. It's because you can't feel the atmosphere in which you normally move." Auric smiled. "Don't sweat it. Your eyes and body take a while to adjust to Lyoko, but it doesn't last too long." Yumi looked towards a white tower that stood out in the distance. Her mind could not comprehend the purpose of the structure. The dark base of the tower was a mass of thick roots anchored in the ground. From them rose a pure white cylinder which vanished into the dimensionless sky. "It's beautiful, wouldn't you agree?" queried a voice from beside her. Yumi spun around. It was Alita. Goodness knows why, but she had expected someone very different, taller, more developed. But instead the person standing in front of her was a frightened girl. "Beautiful and mysterious," she replied as she turned to regard the tower again. Auric took a step away from the 2 girls. "And we can't enter it. Only she can," he said, indicating towards Alita. Yumi nodded. "Auric told me that you're like the guardian of all this." "In a certain sense, yes." And he also said that there are monsters out to get you." "They'll be out to get you too if you're with me." "Why?" "I'm not really sure, and I don't know the purpose of the towers." Alita never got a chance to finish her sentence. The whole horizon suddenly shook with a strong vibration, a kind of digital earthquake, leaving the 3 children staggering to stay on their feet. 1 second later the tower, beforehand perfectly white, shot off an azure flash, and then began to emanate a disturbing blood-red fog. Like 1,000 nails scraping against the surface of a giant chalkboard, a shrill and acute song began to resonate in the air. "Run for it, right now!" yelled Jeremy, his voice coming from all around them. "What's going on?" Yumi asked, suddenly frightened. The elf girl grabbed her hand and led her towards the shelter provided by a cleft rock, which they pressed their backs up against. "You'll be safe here," she advised. "If you're lucky, he shouldn't see you." "But what's happening? Who shouldn't see me?" "His name is Xana. He's the being that's after me." The tower had begun to flash intermittently. Alita observed it with a worried expression on her face. "Now he's found me," she added, her voice loaded with tension. "He's calling his monsters to—" Once again she was interrupted before she could finish speaking. Out of the sand beside them erupted the skeletal body of a tarantula monster that reared up abruptly, seizing Alita. Yumi dove and rolled in the sand while Jeremy cried out in fear, "Alita, no!" But instead of striking the girl, the monster held her up in front of its hairy body. An instant later it pressed a horrible proboscis against her neck, or against her chest. "No!" Alita struggled to breathe. The proboscis was crushing her chest, as if trying to pierce straight through her. The eye of Xana tattooed on the spider was close enough to touch. The monster sniffed at her, smelling her. Then a metallic hiss cleft the air. One of Yumi's Tessin fans came out of nowhere and cut the monster's body in half, emerging from its eye of Xana in a burst of light. The monster dissolved into nothingness, and Alita collapsed onto the sand. Someone offered her a hand to help her up. It was Auric. "Sorry for making you wait a moment there," he said with a smile. Over his shoulder, the tower was beginning to vibrate alarmingly. "I must go treat it," she said mechanically. They escorted her up to the roots of the tower, and then Alita faced through the wall and finally floated up to the master platform. She pressed a hand against the translucent display. It recognized her immediately. Alita, code Lyoko. The symbols scrolling on the walls of the tower began to fall. Once again, Xana's presence was swallowed up and sucked away, cancelled, banished. Does he attack us through the towers? Yumi asked while they waited outside. The desert sector's winds were sweeping the sand in every direction. Something like that, replied Ulrich, and he wants Alita. So he'll be back? He always comes back. Nope, he always comes back, whispered the elfin girl, exiting through the white walls of the tower. She staggered towards them and fell against Yumi, exhausted. Yumi supported her and caressed her face. What happened to you? You look so tired. It passes eventually. I endure it until then. Yumi looked towards Ulrich, concerned. Can't we get her out of here? We're not sure how. Jeremy? Ulrich's right. Ulrich's right. When you're in Lyoko and you have a certain number of life points at your disposal. Every attack by the monsters land on you is deducted from your total. Bit by bit, your life points are reduced to 0, and when that happens, you're removed from the game. But for her, it's different. At those words, Alita lifted her gaze. There were tears in her eyes. Yes, for me it's different. I am different. You guys are only playing in this virtual reality, but I live on Lyoko. This is my reality. Alita, no. I'm not a human being. I'm just a computer program, a piece of software. But you're wrong, Jeremy vigorously shook his head. Xana is a computer program. You're not. You are nothing like him. I am exactly like him. But you're trembling, said Yumi, holding onto her tightly like a big sister. Alita looked up at her. You're trembling because you're afraid, continued Yumi, smiling. And from what little I know, computer programs don't feel fear. Imprisoned in the digital universe of Lyoko, Alita never needed to sleep, eat, or drink, and she did not age. Jeremy, however, was suffering from a perennial headache that had denied him even a moment's peace for several days. He now spent all of his time before the computer, planning, analyzing, and struggling to comprehend. But, most of all, he was speaking with Alita. Right, Alita, he whispered into the camera from the darkened confines of his bedroom. Now stand up and concentrate. What time is it there? Jeremy checked his laptop's internal clock. It was 3:30 in the morning. Not particularly late, he lied. He had locked himself in his bedroom at the school for, he was no longer sure how long. From here he was accessing the factory's computer via a remote uplink. For a computer whiz kid of his caliber, setting up the connection was a simple task. Ever since the day that Yumi had entered into their little circle of friends, Jeremy had fortified himself in his bedroom. He was barely even leaving for meals. Ada and Ulrich had taken to bringing food up from the cafeteria for him. They had urged him to get some rest, but he had ignored them. Let's give it another try. Jeremy, I'm not sure if I want to. We have to, Alita. There's no other way. If you say so, but you're making a mistake. I'm certain I'm not. Jeremy watched her on his monitor as she crossed to the center of the bright concentric circles inscribed on the floor of Tower 3. Then he crossed his fingers and set the program in motion. It was an algorithm designed to compare the digital data of Alita on Lyoko to that memorized in the control console under the old factory. Anyone who entered Lyoko was broken down into virtual data and saved in the supercomputer's memory. This data was essential for the person to make the return journey. But for some reason, Alita's data would not synchronize. Inside Tower 3, Alita was lifted up into the air, her head tipped back and her arms outstretched to the sides. Then she gradually became transparent until only a wireframe, a three-dimensional sketch of her, remained. The girl could no longer feel anything. Now Jeremy focused his attention on the computer monitors, where a progress bar was advancing rapidly beside a graphic representation of Alita. 20%, 30, 40. When 60 was exceeded, he held his breath. The computer reached 90% and then began to slow down. His upper lip was now beaded with sweat. 93, 94. The computer struggled to 99% and then froze up. Synchronization error. But why? Jeremy flew into a sudden rage, smashing his fist against the surface of the table. He tapped at some hotkeys and, inside the tower, Alita began to return to her normal appearance, finally dropping down to land on the ground. So, how did it go? She asked as soon as she had recovered. We're still not there. Your body can be rematerialized, and that must mean that you entered the Lyoko through the factory scanners at some point. But for some reason, you can't get back out. You have a problem at the mental level, I think. At the mental level, how is that significant? It means the computer can't match the data saved at your time of entry with what we're now trying to output. Something inside your mind has changed. Maybe it has something to do with my memory loss. Perhaps I have less data now than I did beforehand. Jeremy was observing the numbers that were appearing on his monitor. Or perhaps it's the other way around. You have an excess compared to before. Aelita looked at him, suddenly curious. Can you send me the data from your computer? I'd like to verify it as well. I think I can do that, yes. In the white tower that served as her shelter, a floating display appeared, and in a few seconds it was populated with numbers. She studied them attentively and eventually spoke. These numbers are like memories, a mountain of memories. Jeremy reflected on this for a moment and then nodded. Aelita's memory had always been fragile and vulnerable. Till now he had not considered the possibility that this was due to an information overabundance and not vice versa. Funny, isn't it? She added. How so? My mind is full of memories that I don't remember having. As if they didn't belong to you, Jeremy murmured absent-mindedly, like if someone implanted them in you, from the outside. But who would do something like that, and why? I don't know. Perhaps they're the software that allows me to function in Lyoko, and that outside of here, in the real world, they're useless to me. Perhaps. Or maybe this is what's motivating Xanon to hunt you, Jeremy thought to himself. That would suggest he's not out to kill you. Perhaps he wants those memories. He needs them. Jeremy? What is it? Maybe you could successfully extract me if you deleted this junk data, these additional memories. Jeremy sighed. I'm not sure, and it could be quite a painful process. But you can try, right? We'd be running the risk of damaging your memory permanently. But the rest of me would still be alright, correct? What do you want my answer to be? I'd like for you to say yes. This could be very dangerous. Delete them, Jeremy. And what if afterwards we still can't materialize you? What if we find that we deleted all this data to no avail? Then it would mean that you were mistaken, and that I was never like you. On the day that they attempted to materialize Aelita, Yumi virtualized into Lyoko to be by her side. Odd and Ulrich, however, were waiting for her in the scanner room. They had planned out everything. Odd had informed Principal Dalmoth that his cousin Aelita would be attending Caddick. Ulrich had falsified the necessary enrollment forms in her name. And finally, Jeremy had used his vocal manipulation software to confirm the whole story, telephoning the school, posing as Aelita's father. Now Jeremy sat at the keyboard in the control room, his finger hovering over the delete key. Do it, Jeremy! Even though she was trying to appear confident, Aelita was still very tense. Yumi took her hand. Don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. Well, except for the fact that you'll have to go to school with the Three Stooges. But what about you? Aelita asked. I'm a grade ahead of you, but we'll still see each other in the cafeteria in the intervals between classes. That sounds wonderful. It will be. Just you wait and see. Better than this place anyway. Think about it. No monsters to be fought, no evil computer programs hunting you. Yumi cut off abruptly, looking towards the other girl with concern. Are you alright? What just happened? Aelita had lifted a hand to her forehead. It was nothing. Just a flash of pain in my head. It's done, Jeremy announced. I just deleted it. All of it. Now we'll see if we can bring you back here. Are you ready? Aelita took a deep breath and shut her eyes. Yes. Okay. Then you'd better enter the tower. So let's do this. The system was armed and ready to go. Jeremy checked one last time that they were ready to begin streaming data. Materialization! He exclaimed at last, stabbing a key. Moments later on Lyoko, Aelita rose into the air, slowly decompiled and began to disappear into nothing. 5%. Now we cross our fingers and hope that this works, guys, Jeremy whispered, unable to hold back the rising tension. Meanwhile, the computer kept on processing, working to match every fragment of virtual Aelita with its corresponding part of flesh and blood Aelita, as she had been when the scanners had committed her physical body to memory. 30%, 40, 60, 80. When they reached 90%, once again the computer started slowing down. Responding to the emergency, Jeremy launched the program that he had spent all those long nights preparing. Activate Memory Masking Program. 98, 99. The screen lit up red. 99.99. Come on, come on, come on. 100! Jeremy let himself collapse back against the seat's backrest. It had worked! Down below, in the scanner room, the sliding door of one of the columns slid open and a girl staggered out. She had red rather than pink hair, and while her ears had a sweeping curve to them, they were hardly elfin. Her clothes were unfashionably outdated. Aelita? Odd asked in an uncertain tone. The girl leaned against a wall to support herself. Confused, she looked around her and her eyes locked onto her own hands. She opened and closed them several times and stared incredulously at her palms. Then, finally, she lifted her head and saw Odd and Ulrich, who were wordlessly staring at her. Guys, is that you? You're different to what I imagined. What, did you think I'd had the towel here as well? Odd joked. Well, if you're expecting me to start purring while rubbing up against your ankles, you're way wrong. There was a moment's silence. Then the three of them began to laugh uproariously, until Ulrich, striving to maintain a serious demeanor, announced in a solemn tone, Aelita, welcome to reality. Is everything okay? Jeremy asked over the loudspeakers. It all went smooth as oil, so we'll bring her up now. Great, I just have to materialize Yumi as well. Jeremy's voice was serious and professional, but it was obvious that his attitude was only skin deep. When the door to the control room began to open, Jeremy rose from the command chair with a start and watched them from a distance with his hands folded behind his back and a nervous smile on his face. Odd and Ulrich entered, flanking Aelita like a pair of bodyguards. Jeremy removed his glasses and cleaned them with the hem of his t-shirt, much too embarrassed to look directly at them. Come on, man. Aren't you going to give her a hug? Exhorted Ulrich. Well, you see, but Aelita had already leapt ahead, running to embrace him, and seconds later was stuck like glue to her personal savior.
You guys can unmute.
Oh.
Okay, the last few lines in that chapter were actually good. But boy, I think I'd rather take tarantulas shooting bolts of light out of their heads. I know you said that you'd rather you would. Did you say you'd rather that not have that, Wazy?
Oh yeah, no. Bolts. No, I'd rather not have bolts of light.
Firing out of their
No, I'd
heads?
rather. Yeah. Realistic over bolts of light. Realistic over head shooting. We just can't. There's some things we can't change.
Well, I'm sorry, but can we also address the fact that there's a tarantula in fucking Xana Awakens?
Well, to be fair,
didn't?
this is ambiguous enough that it's possible in this AU that Yumi didn't come into the group until much later.
That would be weird.
It would.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like it sounds like Yumi and Ulrich have had their sparring lessons, and then Ulrich runs off, and Yumi just follows him.
Sometimes it'd be like that.
Xana be like, bonjour, assholes. I don't. I have a lot of issues though.
Oh
yeah.
This is the part where I think the first time I read this, I was just reading because I'm like, this is not Xana Awakens. What are you doing? Oh, the junk data. I remember reading that and thinking, oh my gosh, that's
Junk
the keys
data?
to Lyoko. That's the keys to Lyoko that they're just about to delete.
What is happening?
I don't think
junk data. Like really? That's what you go with? Not
yes.
It's a virus. What was so hard about being like, oh, she has a virus? She's infected by Xana, and that's why we can't permanently virtualize her and turn the computer off. No, junk data.
Junk data.
Though they make it sound like the junk data is why they can't materialize her at all, which, oh, God, no, no.
Yes.
No. I'm gonna fire you, Wazy. I'm sorry, but I have to leave due to creative differences.
That's fair. Thank you.
Flower will be head of art and design in my steed.
I'm okay with that.
the whole when Chronicles comes out, all the animation will be done in freaking MS Paint for the 2D scenes and Blender.
Excellent.
Well, actually, it might legit be done in Blender. I don't know. But
No.
it'll be done. It'll all be machinima. Like we'll like make and rig up like some
Minecraft
some Lyoko.
machinima.
Yes, it'll be a
my
Minecraft machinima. MS Paint 2D Earth scenes. Minecraft
man.
machinima for Lyoko.
Excellent. These are the changes that I'm talking about. Finally.
And then there's going to be a third layer above the 2D one that's live action, but it's like really, really pixelated and blurry live action.
Ooh, fun. I like this. I like everything that you're doing, Flower. This is it. This is the Code Lyoko that we all deserve.
I junk data though. That's where they ended me. I gotta hand it to her though. That the odd line was actually pretty in character.
True.
Shoot. People were messaging me. I kind of missed that end line. I guess I gotta look it up real quick.
Oh, hold on.
Oh no, wait, that's not. You don't need to replay the stream.
Which one? The odd line?
Yeah, I mean, I know.
What did you think? I had the tail here as well.
Oh, that!
If you're expecting me to start purring while rubbing up against your ankles, you're wrong. You know, to be honest, I wouldn't be amazed if that's like one of Odd's quirks. His
purring?
pleasures in life.
Oh no. Oh no.
Purring and rubbing up against someone's ankles.
No.
He just doesn't know it yet. Okay, I'm gonna go die now.
Yeah, please do.
All right. I think we've had enough fun. Everybody mute up.
All
Time
right.
for the next chapter. Chapter.
Chapter 7 John F. Bullenberg, Gulf of Mexico, January 9th. The motorcycle, a turbocharged Suzuki Hayabusa capable of speeds of over 300 kilometers an hour, screeched around in front of the hangar and braked sharply, leaving a long black strip on the asphalt. Its reckless rider was a young man of some 23 years of age who was wearing a pair of torn jeans, a black leather jacket, and a small rucksack. He kicked down the bike stand with a foot and pulled off his helmet. "Hola, Fernando," he called out to a mechanic in blue overalls who was exiting the hangar, tossing the Suzuki's keys to him. "John, you're leaving us again?" The mechanic, speaking in drawling Spanish, seized the keys in mid-flight. "Yeah, the holidays are over, unfortunately. Can you park the bike for me? I've held them up enough as it is." "No problem." The private jet was a Gulfstream G550 worth almost $6 million. Over its clear blue livery was picked out the multicolored logo of MusicGo, the great online music portal. John F. Bullenberg directed himself up the gangway staircase to the open cabin hatch where a beautiful flight stewardess was waiting for him. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Bullenberg." "Call me John. We're the same age, after all." The girl's perfume smelt of flowers. "Actually, I'm a year older than you, Mr. John," she replied, blushing. John smiled. Entering, he turned to face the cockpit. Tony and Matt were waiting for him, mugs of coffee in hand. On the labels of their shirt, each wore a pin carrying the MusicGo logo, which also looked good on the uniform of the stewardess. "Hey guys, we're ready to depart," Tony said. Do you want to take the controls for takeoff? This sleepy old man beside me needs someone to relieve him." "Hey," teased Matt, "you're the old man who needs a nap." John had recently obtained his private pilot license, and both Tony and Matt knew how much he loved to pilot the jet. But this time the boy shook his head. "Sorry guys, perhaps the landing, but I've got to focus on work right now." The passenger cabin was an elegant lounge furnished in mahogany and clear white leather. John made himself comfortable in the nearest seat and pulled the laptop computer out of his rucksack. "Would you like anything to drink?" the hostess inquired. John had never seen her before. She had to be new. "No, thank you." Until the age of 21, John F. Bullenberg had been a boy no different to anyone else. A penniless student of the University of California, in constant arrears with his rent and examinations. Then, one day, an idea had struck him for a computer program that could put music lovers across the world in contact with one another. He had programmed the first version of Musico late at night, after finishing his shifts at the fast food outlet where he worked. Since then, his life had taken a turn in the complete opposite direction. Fast motorcycles, private jets, villas all over the world. Right now, he was about to depart Costa Rica, where he had invited a few friends to spend Christmas with him. Heading home to California, John F. Bullenberg was living the gilded dream. "Takeoff will be in 5 minutes," Tony announced over the loudspeakers. "Meanwhile, there's a call for you from Margie." Margie was John's personal assistant. He had also hoped she would be his fiancée, but up to this point his attempts on her had been unsuccessful. She had also refused his invitation to join him for Christmas. The young man picked up the telephone receiver built into his armrest. "Hello. Have you taken off yet? We're still on the ground. Is there a problem?" Margie was a petite girl with black eyes, extremely beautiful and always smiling. Now, though, her voice was serious and worried. "Listen, John. It looks like Musico has been infected with a virus." This was not a rarity. Last year there had been over 100 attacks and John had a team of programmers on hand responsible for dealing with them. But this time Margie had decided to skip that stage and bring the issue straight to his door. That meant it was time to start worrying. Is it serious? Right now it's only affected a few computers. But that's not the problem. It's just, I've never seen anything like this virus. Only 10 computers? Musico's online community encapsulated almost 500 million members. Why was Margie disturbing him for something this trivial? "Have you done any projections? What's the rate of infection on this thing?" "Put it this way, do you remember the information meltdown people expected the Millennium Bug to cause? We're talking that bad, or worse, except unlike Y2K, this would be real." John was having trouble believing his own ears. He considered the possibility that Margie was pulling his leg or exaggerating things. But Margie did not make jokes. He could not imagine her pulling one over on him at this level. "Okay, email me a report and I'll go over it now. Have you called Francis about this?" "I can't get through to him. He's still on vacation. I was hoping you had a way to contact him." "Yeah, I do. I'll wait for your report. I missed you," John added hurriedly. Then he ended the call. Through the G550's windows, he could see that they were rolling back from the hangar, the aircraft maneuvering towards the runway. By the time Margie's email arrived, they were in flight. The message consisted of just 2 lines. "Here, solve this quickly," the first line said. The second was a link to the Musico website. John clicked on it, and on the screen of his laptop an image appeared. 2 concentric circles with 3 bars arranged at the bottom and 1 at the top, like the target on a shooting range. Or maybe an eye, he thought. "Sir, I've prepared you an iced tea," the stewardess said. John did not reply. He opened the debugging application that allowed him to troubleshoot Musico's software. He analyzed the website's source code, which everything else ran on top of, and made some modifications to it. "Right, let's see if it works now," he said through gritted teeth. He tapped the enter key. For several seconds he waited. Then his mouth fell open as the coding he had labored long and hard to program began to move, to fluctuate. The letters and numbers spinning across the screen in a vortex of symbols. They were compositing into an image, the same image. 2 concentric circles, 4 little bars. That strange eye again. John cursed, beating his fist against the soft white leather of the armrest. He tried to exit from the debug application, but found himself locked in. "Is everything all right, sir?" asked the considerate stewardess. John sighed. "No, actually, nothing's right at all." From a jacket pocket he extracted his phone and used it to shoot a pair of photos of the image on a screen. He then forwarded them in an MMS to his friend Francis. "Figure this crap out for me." Then he switched off his laptop, and swore again. John's MMS was bounced by his telephone through a bridge repeater, and then to another, and then through yet another. During this process, a small digital fragment inserted into the message suddenly changed course. It was only a short code string, nameless and amnesic, but in a certain sense it was alive. The program managed to penetrate the telephone company's central server network, and from there it spread its net, calling for its many scattered, nameless fragments. They were waiting for it. It was like a magnet attaching tiny metal filings to itself, and in so doing became stronger and stronger. His digital cells were slipping back into place, resuming their function. They focused their efforts on trying to crack into the treasure vault, trying to access his locked-away memories. "I have not died," the being thought, still hunting for further fragments of himself. One of the telephone company's servers spooled up to full speed as the digital entity traveled along the telecommunication lines. I have not died. Oh yes, my memories. I am coming back for you. Several seconds later, in a remote house somewhere in Maine, a phone belonging to a programmer named Francis began to ring. The man picked up the telephone and read the newly received message. Figure this crap out for me. There were 2 attached messages. Both showed the homepage of Musico, something he had seen millions of times before. Thinking it could be a trick, he messaged back, "This craps happens to be the most beautiful website in the world." Almost immediately, the phone began to ring. "Francis? Are you trying to be funny? What do you mean? I just sent you 2 pictures of that strange virus, that kind of, with the 2 circles and..." "John, can you please explain this rubbish you're spouting? There's no virus in the 2 pictures you sent me. As a matter of fact, there's nothing in them, apart from Musico's homepage." John had to ask Francis to message the pictures back to him before he was ready to believe him. True enough, the site had resumed normal operation. The virus had disappeared, leaving no traces, as if it had never existed. Chapter 8. Chocolate, Books, and Secret Passages. City of the Iron Tower, France, January 9th. "Achoo!" sneezed Odd. "Achoo!" Yumi echoed him. Jeremy laughed. "Perhaps coming out here to talk about things wasn't such a good idea, given the cold." We can carry on back in the Hermitage," Org agreed. I can't feel my legs anymore. They must have frozen. So, what do you guys say? Shall we get back inside where it's warm?" "At your orders, boss!" Odd yelled, and before anyone could stop him, he flung a snowball at Jeremy's head. He collapsed and sprawled out across the ground. Yumi shut herself in the bathroom to enjoy a hot shower and wash the cold out of her. Auric and Odd, on the other hand, had entrenched themselves in the living room, buried under 10 centimeters of duvets and blankets, watching a horror film. Kiwi had curled up between Auric's legs, and he was fruitlessly trying to displace the dog. "Ha ha!" Odd laughed at Auric's struggles. "You guys make me laugh too much." "I don't think anything could make you stop laughing," Auric replied dryly, short of decapitating this little monster. "Exactly! You guys are too much. Just you wait and see, eh? Like when we were outside. Oh, I couldn't believe it! Ha ha ha!" Aelita was observing the little scene from the kitchen door. "That is pretty incredible," she commented amusedly. "In the sense that it's incredible someone could live so long without ever making use of his brain?" Jeremy queried, smiling. He took a small pan from the shelf and put it on the electric hot plate, taking care not to burn himself. Then he started to pour in cocoa powder and milk. Aelita sat down to watch. "Hot chocolate would be wonderful right now." Jeremy took a furtive peek and saw her satisfied expression. "How are you feeling now?" I'm not sure. Back when you guys were telling the story, it seemed to me like I was remembering something. Flashes of memory here and there. But I had the strange sensation that it never really happened, as if I had only dreamt it." Aelita sweetly laid her head on Jeremy's shoulder, her short red hair brushing against his neck. "Can I ask you something?" she asked, whispering. "Of course you can." "Why, after all the trouble you had gone into in recovering me from the supercomputer, didn't you shut it down forever?" The cocoa powder swirled in the pan, slowly dissolving into the milk. "Actually, we did try to turn it off." "But something went wrong?" "Yes. Xana had demonstrated a willingness to do anything to survive. To prevent us from extinguishing him forever, he used you." "Used me?" Jeremy looked her in the eyes. He studied her face minutely, noting that he was still mentally adding a pair of elf ears to her. "You are the cure, Aelita, the only person who can deactivate the towers and defuse Xana's attacks." "Again, the towers. But why are they so important? How do they work?" "Oh, we worked that out eventually." Jeremy mixed the chocolate, his eyes lost in vacant. "The towers are bridges. They're the key to everything that's happened to us. They act like connections between the world of Lyoko and this." As he finished his sentence, Jeremy rested his hand on the microwave. Aelita raised an eyebrow. "There's a tower in the oven?" "Hey, I'm being serious here. On Lyoko, there is a tower practically for every piece of electrical machinery on the planet. So if you activate a tower there..." "You are actually modifying the properties of something out here. Alright, I understand." "Correct. Theoretically, through the towers, Xana was able to take control of electrical equipment. Of anything that operated electrically, including..." Jeremy touched a finger to his head. "Our brains, which function through bioelectrical micro-discharges. With obvious exceptions, of course. Odd, for example, is not in any danger." Aelita giggled, though in truth she felt anything but relaxed. Yumi emerged from the shower with her hair wrapped in a towel. Odd and Ulrich were still under the covers watching the film's final exhilarating scene. "Where are the others?" she asked. They're just off having a private chat," muttered Odd, his mouth full. "Biscuit? How can you be eating? We only had lunch an hour ago." Odd shrugged and continued to munch on his half of the biscuit. The other half had been thrown to Kiwi. "Here we are," called Jeremy, emerging from the kitchen with Aelita. They joined the others on the couch, laying down a tray carrying the mugs of chocolate, each one piping hot and deliciously aromatic. Smelling the rich aroma, Kiwi whined lowly. "Okay, here we go." Odd roused himself and grasped the cups of chocolate from the tray to distribute them out. "Now's the time to drink a beautiful chocolate toast to us and to the last day of our vacation. Cheers!" Delicious," Ulrich commented, chewing in satisfaction. "You even left the lumps in. Just how I like it." Jeremy glanced over the rims of his glasses. "What lumps? I mixed it really thoroughly." "Still," Ulrich said. His cheeks were full and he was engaged with chewing. Then he suddenly stopped. His eyes, shot through with red, began to roll madly, while his face became purple. After several seconds, Ulrich spat his mouthful of chocolate all over the blankets and the floor. "Water!" he cried, getting to his feet. "Give me some water, quick!" Odd! Odd was nearly suffocating with laughter. "Lumps! I slipped him some extra strong chili. Ha ha! I thought it would make our Ulrich's chocolate really unforgettable." The friends exchanged a perplexed look, and then they exploded in a noisy chorus of laughter. Ulrich returned from the kitchen with his eyes streaming. "Ugh, what a stupid joke." "Oh, Mr. Stern, don't give me that face. And I've heard chili's good for the heart, so I just did wonders for your health." "Revenge, Odd, revenge." Yumi stopped Ulrich by seizing hold of him from behind, still unable to stop laughing. "Instead of taking your revenge, why don't we all do something as a group?" "Yeah, that sounds good," Odd agreed immediately, happy to escape his well-deserved punishment for the joke. "What did you have in mind?" "Let's explore the attic," Yumi proposed, a strange light shining in her eyes. The topmost floor of the Hermitage was isolated from the rest of the house and devoted to a gigantic study. There were no computers, however, only a large desk covered with papers and 3 blackboards covered with half-rubbed-out mathematical equations. Pushed into a corner was a little sideboard on which rested a coffee machine and electric stove, along with a dirty and chipped mug. And the rest of the space was taken up with books. Books upon books, hundreds of them piled up on precarious shelves or stacked on the floor, opened and closed, big and little. Year upon year of old magazines and periodical back issues were sealed in big cardboard boxes. The attic was lit by 3 windows. The first overlooked the Hermitage's driveway and the road. Through the second, which looked in the opposite direction, could be seen the snow-mantled park and beyond, the buildings of Caddick. And finally, the third window, the widest and largest, offered a striking view of the old industrial quarter, and in the distance could be seen the bridge and the whole old factory on its island. The Hermitage, Caddick, the factory. 3 places separated by several kilometers of asphalted roads, but connected by a dense network of underground passages. And by secrets. Jeremy approached the first bookcase and skimmed his finger along the dusty spines of the book covers. "Look, it's all here," he said to Aelita with a certain satisfaction. "From basic mathematics to advanced computer theory." He seized a volume that looked like it must have weighed at least 200 kilograms and leafed through some of the pages. "Ah, now this is a real treasure." Odd started sneezing widely. Achoo! Really, I would have preferred something more traditional. Achoo! How about, I don't know, a casket of golden doubloons? "That's just because you're ignorant," retorted Ulrich, laughing. Yumi had started searching through the notes and sheets scattered across the desk. Notes, scribbles, even a list of expenses. Kiwi plunged his muzzle into an overturned rubbish bin, and then he awkwardly worked his entire body inside. "Guys, I'm not sure I understand. What do you mean by 'it's all here'?" Aelita said, caressing some of the old objects in the attic. "All of what?" Perhaps we should have explained it to you beforehand," Odd replied absent-mindedly. "Explained what to me?" "We were just waiting for the appropriate moment," Jeremy intervened. "After all..." "Can you please enlighten me as to what the heck you're talking about?" Aelita insisted. Jeremy came up to her. "It's very simple. This house used to be your home." "My home?" "Right." "Do you mean that I used to live here?" "Yes, together with your father, the creator of the Lyoko." Aelita could feel herself begin to sway. "My father created Lyoko?" "Yes, your father's name was Franz Hopper, Professor Hopper. He was a teacher at Caddick." "No, wait a second." Aelita shook her head confusedly, scattering so many thoughts that she was struggling to hold on to. "My father created Lyoko? Honestly?" "Yes, while you were studying at the academy," Jeremy continued. "It seems like it was all moving along quietly, but then..." He broke off abruptly and looked at her intently. "Does the 6th of June mean anything to you?" Aelita shook her head. "No, should it?" That was the day when you and your father escaped together, the day on which you passed through the scanners under the old factory and entered Lyoko. We were escaping? Don't ask me why, we don't know. And when did all of this happen? 1994, 10 years ago. Alita seized her head between her hands, completely lost. 10 years ago? But if I was a student at the school, then how old was I? You were 12, more or less. Alita fixed him with a distressed stare. That's not possible. If that was true, then I should be over 20 years old. Jeremy could not imagine how painful and upsetting this all had to be for her, but this moment could not be avoided forever, and he had accepted that. Alita had to remember, and with those memories, inevitably, the pain would return as well. He forced a smile onto his face, as kind and sweet a one as he could manage. But you're not. I know this must seem impossible to you, but you have not aged. Because you were in Lyoko, time stopped for you while the supercomputer was deactivated. Alita seemed confused. Her forehead wrinkled and her face drew taut, as if she was making a superhuman effort to assimilate and understand all this new information. So who was it? Who deactivated the supercomputer then? Was all she could ask. We don't even know that, Jeremy answered, shaking his head. It might have been your father, or possibly the people who were pursuing you. Perhaps someone who simply thought the supercomputer was too dangerous to leave running. I was living here with my father, repeated Alita, as if trying to convince herself. Then a light seemed to ignite in the depths of her eyes. And I must have had a mother as well, right? I'm sorry, but we don't know anything about her. This time it was Yumi who answered her question, she herself struggling to not burst into tears. Alita looked at her silently. It was all so completely absurd and riddled with shadows, endless questions without answers, and in any case, no matter how hard she strained, she could no longer think. She felt empty, as if drained of energy. With an unconscious gesture, she took from Kiwi's mouth a notebook that the dog had found while ransacking the rubbish bin. The black leather cover was wrapped in an elastic band. Acting mechanically, she opened it and leafed forwards. All the pages were white. Empty, like my mind. Slipping the notebook into the back pocket of her jeans, she sat on the floor. She wished that she could just close her eyes and wake up a month later, having forgotten everything she had been told of her past. Guys, Odd's voice suddenly cut through the tense silence. We're way too skittish in this dusty old attic, and our special day is starting to turn into a funeral. What do you say to doing something a bit more fun? What did you have in mind? Asked Yumi distrustfully. Well, how do you feel about hide and seek? The reaction of the others was tepid to say the least. I looked around and sighed in disconsolation. Okay, I get it. I'll be it first, but you better not make it too difficult for me to find you. Then he exited the study, leaving the door open while he covered his eyes and started to count in a loud voice. 1, 2, 3, 4. Jeremy decided that, in light of things, Odd's idea wasn't so bad. He caught hold of Alita's arm and whispered in her ear, Let's go this way.
Well, that was interesting. I don't know how to feel about that.
First, though, quick guys. Odd has his eyes closed and is counting. Let's just leave.
Yeah, why is since when is Jeremy so fucking brutal, man?
Right? He's just roasting Odd left and right.
What, did Alita lose all her fucking memories and just Jeremy get all the freaking brutality?
Yes.
Like, come on. Holy crap.
Crap, okay. I think I have a new meme. I have a new meme for once.
Oh, now I'm curious.
I can, you know what? I can make it now.
Hold on. I came up with the, what is it? Where did I say it? Look how they massacred my boy. When did I say
Oh
it?
yeah, you gotta do that.
I'm still not sure how to feel about the hot chocolate chili prank.
Oh yeah.
I feel like
Mr. Puck, look how they massacred my boy. I'm gonna go get some water real quick and then we'll start the next chapter.
Yeah,
I didn't go through like the pictures, but they can get a little weird.
Mr. Puck just
Oh, I remember I was rereading it and I posted it in the freaking Cat and Carol chat. I'm like, what? Look what they did to Mr. Puck. Literally just an elf on the shelf. Like, come on.
Delete this. Honestly, that's what they should have done.
I would have liked it. Like, I like the idea of the pictures in there, and like, I can tell the author put some effort and time into them. I would have liked it if he could have figured out a way to make a real life Mr. Puck doll and took a picture of that. That would have been cool.
Yeah. But nah, they decided, well, whatever that was. And it's just, it's creepy, it's weird, it's gross, nobody likes it. And now it's silent.
It is. It is very silent. It's because Dylan's not here. So yeah, what'd you think about the John chapter?
Hold on, that was the cyber guy, right?
Yeah, he built Musico and he was like going on a plane and trying to figure out the site.
I thought it was interesting. It's a little weird. Like, I get it. They're trying to show Xana coming back to power and all of that. He's doing the thing. But at the same time, it's just like, huh, you know. So, but it is nice to get some side stories though of like people encountering Xana and how they react to that. That's fun, but otherwise it's just it's odd, but it's nice.
Definitely. I mean, you can see next chapter is that one character that comes up anytime people talk about Chronicles. Like, oh, she's like everyone's like, oh, she's like a warrior too. I'm like, no, she isn't.
She's not?
You'll see.
Huh.
I can't really explain my feelings about Eva Skinner until you meet her, and really we gotta get through most of like we gotta get through like all the way through this book, the next book, and then a good chunk through book 3. No, I think we just have to finish the entire series. But people like say like Eva Skinner's underrated. I'm like, she really isn't. But we'll see. We'll get to meet her.
I've heard lots of things about Eva Skinner over the years, so
now we get the source.
I don't know how many times I'm gonna have to take that cat off my computer, but that cat keeps jumping on top of my computer.
It's time.
Okay, guys. Mute.
All right.
Chapter 9, Eva Skinner, California, United States of America, January 9th. From above, Meredith Logan High School seemed a luxury hotel rather than a school. A single 6-story building bent in a horseshoe shape, encircling the great principal courtyard. There were long and winding footpaths, a golf course, and even an artificial river in which the boys and girls could practice their rowing. Meredith was situated between the city of Berkeley and the Bryons Regional Park in Western California. It was considered one of the best schools in the United States of America, not only for the high educational standards set by its staff, but also for the school's ability to organize a wide variety of extracurricular events, from music concerts to sports tournaments. On this Sunday, the 9th of January, the whole school had been thrown into confusion. At dawn, the main courtyard had been invaded by articulated trucks and caravans, and now an army of workers were unloading and assembling stage sections, threading cables together, securing lights with bolts. Around midday, the general confusion was worsened by students arriving back from their holidays early. It was a strangely hot day for the season, more than 20 degrees, and so the students were wearing short-sleeved t-shirts as they gathered where decorations were being hung, announcing, "Sub-Digital's Live Concert!" A small group of 3 female students carrying lunchboxes had arranged themselves under Old Joe, an elderly pine tree situated on a little promontory next to the school. From here, they had a fantastic view of the entire courtyard. "Wow, isn't this incredible?" Susie said, losing herself in the excitement. "It was really worth the effort to return to school a day early." "I can see that now," echoed Jennifer. "Hey, look, you can see the stage now. Holy cow, that is huge." The third girl, Eva Skinner, wore her blonde hair cut short in a manner that drew attention to the perfect line of her nose. Eva turned around to face her companions, rolling her blue eyes and long eyelashes in a manner that had turned the heads of many of Meredith's male students. "Sure, it's big, but the stage at Los Angeles was at least double the size," she said icily. Of all of them, she was the only one blessed with the good fortune to have attended the event of the century, the Los Angeles Sub-Digitals concert, where they had performed in front of almost 100,000 people. As a result, she had been elected president of the school's fan club and was qualified to judge the work of the band's roadies. Susie sighed. "My father had promised to take me as well, but he had a conflicting appointment at the last minute." "Yeah, but to win your forgiveness, he bought you a pony for Christmas," Jennifer reminded her. "Yeah, and I loathe horses. They stink." "Anyway, the stage is nowhere near as big," Eva ruled, steering the conversation back towards her favorite subject, "and the lighting array is smaller. Plus, at Los Angeles, the concert was in the evening and not in the afternoon. Can you imagine? In the dark, the images they projected of Gardenia reached as high as the stars." "I wish I could have been there," grieved Susie. Then she searched around in her handbag and pulled out the digital camera her uncle had given her for her birthday. "Shall we take some photos so we can post them on the Music Go forums?" Eva put on a sulky expression, unconvinced. "There's only 3 hours until the concert, and in that time I have to take a shower and style my hair, apply my makeup, and pick out my dress. I've got no time to—" "But you are the president," Susie clarified with a malicious smile. "Certain responsibilities fall to you." Eva had to go down to the school's reception banquet with a list of the various items of food everyone wanted, and then Jennifer implored that she help with her hairdo. "So when am I meant to get ready?" "You already look beautiful. I'm begging you here." "It's an emergency." Giving in, Eva helped dry and arrange Jennifer's hair, and to put a pink streak in it. "The perfect gardenia look," the other girl nodded, gazing into her mirror with satisfaction. Eva resisted the urge to say that the contrast of her friend's sandy hair and the colorfully dyed forelock only served to give her a rather stupid air. She was ready for the next request, that she paint Jennifer's face with green facial cream, and agreed immediately, provided that she could go to her room afterwards. When she finally escaped Jennifer's room, she found Susie running up the long corridor towards her. "What is it this time?" asked Eva, now on the verge of despair. Susie handed a CD to her. "The photos! I burnt them onto this," she panted. "But can't I publish them on the site after the concert? There's only an hour to go now." "Girl, are you joking? With the Sub-Digitals here at Meredith, we'll have 1,000,000 contacts. You won't be able to move for all the fans." "Okay, I'll do it. Give me the disc." Eva entered her room in a furious rush, stripped her clothes, and slipped into the shower. Instead of the long, relaxing soak she had planned, she had to make do with a quick rinse. Then she wrapped a bathrobe around herself, turbaned her hair with a clean towel, and, dripping water on the floor, ran to her computer. Uploading the photos was going to be a real chore. On concert days, the musical forums could suffer terrible lagging due to the increase in activity. While the computer booted itself, Eva took advantage of a few seconds' peace to varnish her nails. She shook her hands back and forth to make them dry faster. Meanwhile, she used her foot to press the button that opened the computer's DVD drive. Fortunately, being president of the fan club had ensured her a reserved space in the front row, and she didn't have to worry about arriving in advance to crowd against the barriers like lesser mortals, but she was still running against time. She grabbed the mouse and clicked on her desktop's Music-Go icon. On the monitor, the Sub-Digitals emblem appeared, a rose whose stalk was fused with the neck of an electric guitar. Eva gave it only a familiar, absent-minded glance. Then the image flickered and wavered. The flower's red corolla began to open out and darken in color. Eventually, a strange drawing appeared in place of the emblem. 2 black concentric circles, 4 little radial bars, 1 above and 3 below. The girl battered her eyelids in confusion. Her mouse spat out an electric blue spark, and then Eva remembered nothing. Chapter 10. The Secrets of the Hermitage, City of the Iron Tower, France, January 9th. Jeremy led Alita towards the writing desk and showed her a trapdoor set into the floor of the study, a simple bit of planking made of a lighter-colored wood than the rest of the parquet floor. Together they lifted it, raising a cloud of dust that left them both sneezing. Beneath it was a narrow spiral staircase that corkscrewed downwards, hemmed in by sparse cement walls. "Incredible!" exclaimed Alita. "It's like a secret passage." Jeremy smiled. "That's exactly what it is. A secret passage that leads straight to the basement. And you've seen nothing yet. Would you believe that there is another underground passage that connects here to the old factory? We think your father was using it to reach his laboratory without drawing unwanted attention. Or it's possibly how you escaped there 10 years ago." You say that as if You say that as if that's something normal. Aelita took his arm, forcing him to face her. Please, Jeremy, she whispered, looking him straight in the eyes. Please, Jeremy, I need you to tell me everything you know about this, right now. Fair enough, but only if you don't go and make a sudden new discovery, he tried to joke. Then, seeing Aelita's severe expression, he immediately became serious. Honestly, there isn't anything we've not already shared with you. All we discovered is that your father was somewhat secretive, and that he arranged for the house to be riddled with escape routes and hidden passages. But why all these secrets? We believe it can be attributed to the private nature of your father's research, and perhaps some of these hidden entrances were for the convenience of whoever he was conducting that research for. What do you mean? Who was my father working for? Jeremy shook his head. We're not sure. All we have to go on for now is a name, the Green Phoenix. And that means? It means that for now, we're fumbling in the dark. There followed a long silence that seemed to stretch on forever, during which Aelita remained immobile, frozen at the top of the spiral staircase that disappeared down into the shadows. Have you located all of these passages? She asked unexpectedly, as if waking up from a long sleep. No, unfortunately. The structural plans for the Hermitage are long gone, but we discover a new one every time we explore the house. That's why it's so much fun to play hide and seek here. He smiled at her and winked. Aelita returned the smile and placed one foot on the first step. Then she seemed to reconsider it and turned to face Jeremy again. Let's never let any secrets come between us, agreed? Jeremy gazed at her seriously and nodded. I promise. Now we better head down before Odd discovers us. The basement of the Hermitage had more in common with a warehouse than a cellar. Jeremy and Aelita emerged from the hidden passage and closed the door behind them. It was covered with a cement panel so as to make it practically indistinguishable from the walls around it. Straight in front of them was an industrial-strength refrigerator, an entire chilled room sealed off by a reinforced metal door. On the right, another room served as a pantry, a cluster of metal shelving units still stacked with boxes of food purchased in bulk. Now they started to follow the dark passage, lit only by opaque windows at ceiling level. They found wardrobes crowded with brooms and cleaning detergents, and emerged in a huge room, almost empty and only occupied by a pair of clothes horses and an old washing machine. Jeremy knew that this was all a difficult burden for Aelita to bear, and he felt guilty that he could not completely share in his friend's pain. But at the same time, he himself felt strangely content, an emotion that was quite rare for him. He was on vacation, spending time with his friends, and the hide-and-seek had given him the perfect excuse to be alone with Aelita. Perhaps it was wrong of him, but he could not help it. And in truth, Aelita seemed to have taken to this tour of the Hermitage's basement as an opportunity to divert her attention. And where does this go? She asked curiously, as they arrived at the entrance to a darkened passage. It leads down to several other passages that we've not fully explored yet. It's a good 20-minute walk, and then, who knows? Aelita had the sensation of having been here once before, though she could not remember precisely when. Her attention was drawn in the opposite direction. And this is? She asked. It was a little square room a few meters long on each side, which looked like the stores of a builder's yard. Sacks of lime were piled into a corner and covered with dust, along with big boxes of broken tiles. There was a dirty pail of mortar and an old trowel. Wait a minute, Aelita said. You've never been able to find the plans for the Hermitage, correct? Right. But there must have been other people working on all this. I mean, like the contractors. Maybe they could be able to tell us something. Jeremy looked at her in admiration. You're right. I never considered that. He crouched down to examine the sacks closer. There's something written here, but it's illegible. Something completely worn out. Here, help me to move these. Perhaps the ones behind might be better condition. They weighed a ton, but between the two of them they were able to drag the first row of sacks forward on the floor by a few centimeters. Aelita slipped into the space they had created and stopped to read. Bingo! B&B Brulette and Brothers, 117 Rue de Tivoli. That's right on the other side of the city, observed Jeremy. But that means my father hired a company with that address. Maybe they're still in business. We could go there right now. Hey, slow down, Jeremy exclaimed. Don't we at least want to finish the game? Aelita smiled. Think about it. Is an inquiry of this kind any less boring than playing hide-and-seek? Yumi and Ulrich advanced through the snow-covered garden, their feet sinking several centimeters into the soft mantle. After several steps, Ulrich's socks had already soaked through and he had started to sneeze. Oh yeah, going outside was a great idea. Why stay inside in the comfortable warmth? Plus, we're leaving a trail of footprints. Odd will find us in a second. Harg! Burst out Yumi. If you just stop moaning, you might start enjoying the fresh air. Besides, don't you find it romantic? Ulrich stopped. Romantic? He stammered confusedly. He suddenly felt as if Yumi had struck him right in the chest with one of her most painful kung fu attacks. Come on, let's get out of here, his friend exhorted, taking him by the hand and leading him up the frozen access path towards the gate. Yumi's hand was warm and Auric suddenly felt sweaty under the collar in spite of the cold. Before his eyes, her black hair seemed to sparkle in the wintry afternoon light. Yumi suddenly stopped. Oh, here, now there's a coincidence. Look who's here as well, she whispered. Auric instinctively turned to look in the same direction as his friend and went rigid. A moment later, he had embraced her and hurled her to the ground, throwing himself down in the deep snow next to her. Because at that precise moment, standing at the gate was her schoolmate, William Dunbar, wearing a gray woolen hat to protect his slightly too long black hair, and an elegant greatcoat that was zipped up to the collar. From his ears emerged the wires of an MP3 player, and the boy was listening along to the music. Do you mind explaining what's gotten into you? Screamed Yumi, half suffocated by the snow. Were you trying to kill me? For pity's sake, keep quiet, Auric whispered, pressing a finger against her lips. He turned fearfully to see if William had noticed anything, but the other boy had peacefully continued in his tranquil walk, heading goodness knows where. That finger on her lips had literally enraged Yumi. She hurled the Auric to one side with a judo movement and rose to her feet. The usually white skin of her face was now a fiery red, and her expression was rabid. Mr. Ulrich Stern, she hissed. You didn't want William to notice us? Is that the case? You didn't want him to say hello to me? Just let it go, all right? You will not dictate to me what I will and won't let go. You have no right to do that, no right at all. Whereupon the girl set off with great long strides back towards the house, leaving Ulrich drenched in snow to wonder what precisely he had done wrong. Chapter 11. Eva Skinner, California, United States of America, January 9th. It felt good. It felt alive. And even if it had lost much precious time to find the right person, the result was worth all the trouble. Not that little boy in Massachusetts. Not even the young man on the private jet. Eva. Through her, he would shape his destiny. Through her, his chosen. The security guard was 2 meters tall and just as large, with a dark t-shirt pulled on over the muscles of a bodybuilder. He shot a dark glare into the girl's eyes. Then he noticed her fan club badge and gestured for them to pass him. This way, he said in a surly tone. Eva Skinner advanced through the metal barricades, followed by Susie, Jennifer, and 5 other girls from the club's guiding committee. They had avoided the earlier chaos as the crowd assembled. To their right-hand side, the pupils of Meredith Logan were pressing up against the barriers. To the left, there was a stage, separated from the public by only a low wall and a short piece of lawn. The band's percussion section took up almost half of the available space, with 5 bass drums and an unspecified number of snare drums, cymbals, tom-toms, and kettle drums. There were bongos and treble drums for the slower songs, and a long rack in which the multitude of guitars Freno would need during the concert were stored. Bumba's keyboards, mounted on spring-loaded stands that allowed him to move to the rhythm of the music, were positioned next to the special effects computers. And finally, there was Gardenia's microphone and Mystic's bass guitar, resting on an easel in the center of the stage. Incredible, Susie murmured, her eyes wide open. Insane! Jennifer mimicked the sentiment. Eva, however, did not say anything. She was watching the stage technicians who were about to connect the last of the cables. The huge plasma screen TVs were playing a looping video of the highlights of the band's world tour. The girls were in a fantastic position. They would be the first ones to see Gardenia when she came on stage. Enjoy life and long live rock and roll, she would yell. And then, we are the Subdigitals! Suddenly, all the stage lights illuminated and the students crowding against the barriers began to chant, Sabdig, Sabdig, Sabdig. Their disappointment was huge when they realized that the person advancing between all the instruments on stage was not Gardenia, but Professor Hannah Jeffrey Logan, the school's principal and great-great-great-granddaughter to Meredith, its titular founder. There followed a long silence before Logan began her attack. This event that you are all so enthusiastic for is in fact an educational moment of great importance for our school. Music is fundamental in the shaping of young minds, and this concert will resound across the nation. After 5 minutes of this incessant droning, the students could not take any more. The chant started up again with more strength than beforehand, punctuated this time with isolated cries of, Enough already! We want Gardenia! Gardenia's name began to run from one mouth to the next, building into a deafening roar. Eventually, the headmistress raised her hands and concluded, And as I'm sure you understand, go in peace. And now, without further delay, I would like to present the famous Sev-Nominals. Sev-Digitals! Screamed back the gathered crowd with enough force to mess up her hair. Yes, of course, as you were. Good afternoon. She made a quick about turn, and on stage the lights went out. Here it comes, a trembling Eva whispered. They're starting. The sound of Mystic's bass began to spread in the air, punching out the same note repeatedly, and the crowd's enthusiasm went through the roof. The security guerrillas had to press against the barriers with all their weight to prevent them from collapsing. Then Freno began his guitar solo. The stage was still empty. Then a woman's voice, clear as crystal, addressed the public. Enjoy life. And long live rock and roll! The audience responded in chorus. That's right. It was almost a whisper, but it emanated a mad energy, as if trying and failing to suppress itself. Today at Meredith Logan High School of Berkeley, California! The voice had risen for a moment, but then suddenly returned to whisper. We hadn't planned on your graceful headmistress being the opening act. But didn't she warm you up for us? Luckily for us, though, we no longer have to go to school. Cries, laughter. We are here for you. We are here to entertain you. We are the Seb Digitals. The lights blazed on, and the musicians came running on stage. Then there was an explosion of music, motion, voices, and Eva did not understand anything anymore, except that she was perfectly happy. An hour and 20 minutes into the concert, she had screamed to the point of losing her voice. When Freno launched into a loud guitar solo, the adrenaline clenched her throat shut so violently that she thought she was about to faint. Ladies and gentlemen, announced Gardenia from the stage, we're proud to now perform for you our latest single. It's called... The public finished it for her. Love, Love, Punka! The guitar's intensity increased, the other instruments joining in, and behind the stage the darkened widescreen suddenly lit up, playing the song's music video. A little boy was waking up in a disorderly bedroom, was eating breakfast. Life is sometimes weirder, boring, slower. That's my call, 'cause I love, love, Punka! Gardenia was dressed in the uniform of a cleaning lady. She was walking along a street, saw the little boy making his escape, and took his hand. In a rainy black alley, Freno was playing his guitar while laid out in the gap between two rubbish skips. Then the camera zoomed up onto the staircase of one building's fire escape, where Bumba was playing his keyboards. I know I want to say that I love, love, Punka! Gardenia was now picking up a rose and imbuing it with new life. The stalk lengthening down to the ground and taking root, growing up into a robust plant that lifted Gardenia and the little boy up into the sky. The flower's corolla was opening in a whirl of colors. Then, for an instant, the petals transformed. They became two concentric circles, forming an eye, something that Eva had seen before. It happened so quickly that no one else in the crowd took any notice of it, but the image was implanted in Eva Skinner's brain, and around her, everything became black.
Did we want to have an intermission now? We just went through like 3 chapters.
Oh yeah, that's fair. I had to run to the bathroom real quick. Sorry about that.
Honestly, I was waiting for you guys. Like,
Oh yeah, that's fair. I had to run. Sorry about that.
I was waiting for
background.
you guys.
Yeah, make sure you make the stream.
Yeah.
While we're
I just
talking.
realized that. I just realized that. I'm like, wait.
Oh, 3 more. Okay. Yeah, final 3 after this. I honestly don't mind Ava. She's not terrible.
Oh no, she's not like Laura where like people hate her. She doesn't really do anything bad.
Fair, it's not hard to have a lot of people hate someone when not a lot of people know that someone exists.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'd hate you, but I don't even know who the fuck you are.
I actually just, my problem with her is I find her to be a bit on the blander side. Well, I mean, I don't want to reveal exactly what happens yet, but like most of her involvement is not really her. She's basically like a pawn for most of the series up until towards the end. And then her last name is in Bodwig. Oh, Laura, I'm talking. Laura is controversial. Like, Laura ticks people off with some of the choices she makes and how she's handled. Eva just kind of exists to be used. Like, both Eva and Laura are pawns, but they're pawns in very different ways, and Eva has almost very little agency. Though, to be fair, her whole situation's kind of crazy, so...
Hold on. Going a bit off topic. What chapter was Jeremy just being a roast king in?
That was let me double check my listings.
Chapter 8.
That
Chocolate
was
books and secret passages.
that's
Yeah,
chapter
but what
8.
number?
That's chapter 8.
Okay.
Chapter 12.
My meme is in Caddick Herald.
Oh, I see
shit.
it.
Oh shit. You stole that from Jenny.
Oh, did I?
Remember, that's what she based her gym off of.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh well.
It's still funny.
I was gonna use the cartoon version of him, but then I remembered. Oh wait, live action.
That what was his actor's
Actually,
name?
if the head wasn't so big, it would work. I could say you could actually convince me that's the person's actual head.
Shrink it. Well,
But you don't get that expression. You don't get that expression as well.
And shrink. Because I gotta cover the other guy's head.
I know you got to cover the other guy's head.
Yeah.
You could also do some really good rotoscoping and just make the other guy's body a little bigger too.
That's true, but nah. Way too much effort. Effort for my low effort memes. Hold up.
So yes, there's Eva. Yeah, I mean, as a character, she's not bad. There's a little in between with oh yeah, that stupid little fight scene with Horik and Yumi and William. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
What was that? What were they fighting about?
So Horik and Yumi, they're playing hide and seek, and they go outside, and then William just happens to be walking by. Horik sees William and just immediately pushes Yumi down. He's like, "Hey, get down, get down." And she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And then she gets really mad at him over it. William walks away, and then Yumi blows up at Auric about like not wanting to say hi to him. And then she walks off, and he kind of just meekly follows after.
You gotta have that Ulrich William.
Why didn't you want to say hi to him? Yumi, we're in the fucking yard of the Hermitage. You think that's gonna end well for us?
Honestly, that's what I'm thinking. The book keeps bringing up how every time all their fights revolve around William Dunbar, which is not entirely true.
Ulrich is just being super jealous, and she gotta call him out on that.
Guys, what if the real mastermind behind the entirety of Code Lyoko is Ulrich? What if Ulrich hired Franz Hopper to build the supercomputer? No, stay with me. To build the supercomputer. And then he had the entire events of Project Carthage unfold in perfect manner in order for Franz and Aelita to lock themselves away in the supercomputer. And then he knew that one of the kids he was a classmate with years later was going to turn the computer back on. And because of that, he was then going to be able to finally get a girlfriend. Also, Ulrich's a vampire.
He did this.
Oh, that would explain.
He did this at 3 years old. Like,
I've always thought of a fun TP idea where like they have to do like a 10-year return to the past to like go back that far in time, and like all the warriors except for Aelita are like toddlers, but they have the minds of their teenage selves.
Can you imagine consciously knowing you're gonna have to go through puberty again? Flowers should specifically know what movie I'm referencing right now.
Oh no.
Oh yes, the end of Sky High.
I went through
Oh
puberty.
no.
I went through puberty twice for this. All right, home stretch. 3,
Here
2,
we go.
1. Mute yo mouths.
Chapter 12 The Mystery of the Builders, City of the Iron Tower, France, January 9th. The game of hide-and-seek had been quickly wrecked. Odd had only just started looking for the others when Jeremy and Aelita had reappeared through the trapdoor in the attic and asked him to stop. Then the three of them had gone searching for Ulrich and Yumi, quickly finding them in the living room, sitting in silence on the couch. Something must have happened because the girl seemed furious and Ulrich was regarding her timorously, like an inexperienced animal handler facing off against an undomesticated tiger. Aelita has an idea, Jeremy announced to them. In the cellar there are some stacks of cement marked with the address of a construction firm in the city. So what? Asked Ulrich. We were thinking of going to the address on the sacks and seeing if anyone there ever worked in the Hermitage. On a Sunday? Yumi intervened. This is the only day when we're free to do what we want. School starts up again tomorrow, after all. Do you know how many years those sacks may have been moldering down there, Einstein? I'm guessing at least 10. It was only a suggestion. Ulrich was wiping snow from his hair with a towel. Is it really that important? Jeremy told me about the secret passages, Aelita explained. Perhaps if we talked to the people who helped build them, we could learn something we don't already know. Maybe one of them knew my father. They stared at her in silence. It was Yumi who eventually said what everyone was thinking. Getting to the bottom of this isn't going to do us any harm. But it doesn't make sense for all of us to just get up and go together, objected Odd. Someone has to stay here and prepare snacks for later. I don't believe this. You can't always be hungry, exclaimed Jeremy. Odd's right. There's no need for all of us to go. For example, I'd be better off staying here to clear the house with... Yumi indicated towards Ulrich with her head. Get this mud off my legs, Ulrich hissed in the silence that followed, or I'm going to smother it with a towel. It was snowing again. Icy needles were setting lightly on the clothes of passers-by, turning them into irregular white figures. Odd sneezed. I don't understand why this fell to you and me in the end. Jeremy smiled. No, you probably wouldn't. But consider this. Ulrich and Yumi evidently need to make peace with one another, but they would never have agreed to stay alone in the Hermitage together. Hence Aelita had to stay behind with them. But I could have stayed behind instead. I would have had them signing an armistice in a nanosecond. More likely you would convince them to skip the niceties of diplomacy and have them jump straight into kung fu negotiations, Jeremy concluded, sniggering. He wasn't sure what exactly had transpired between the two of them, but he was certain that at some point William Dunbar had entered the picture. The majority of Yumi and Ulrich's arguments revolved around him in some form or another. The gray sky grew darker still, until it was as black as the surface of the road they followed through the buildings and streets of the city. Exactly what are we looking for? Odd asked after a while. 117 Rue de Tivoli, Jeremy reminded him. It's the address of a firm of contractors called Brulette and Brothers. If they really did some work on the Hermitage, and assuming someone there still remembers Helper, they might be able to provide us with some information. How much time has passed since when they probably worked on the house? At least 11 years, possibly more. Uh-huh, commented Odd. It seems to me that we're out here catching pneumonia for nothing. The two boys crossed the Place de la Révolution, an open square of dark paving tiles surrounded by small shops bedecked with Christmas lights. They cut down Rue de Provence and passed several people wrapped up in waterproof jackets, waiting for a bus that would never come. Rue de Tivoli should be the second or third road on the left. It was an anonymous street of offices. As they proceeded down it, the smart buildings gave way to poorer buildings in dire need of repair, alternating with sad warehouses. Hey, this is only number 2, Odd said, indicating the address of the first of the grand civic buildings. Great, another lovely long walk lies ahead of us. It felt like trekking up to cavalry, the wind smacking at their cheeks and whirling more and more snowflakes into their eyes. The sidewalks were treacherous frozen panes of glass, and so instead the boys trudged up the middle of the road, where snowplows had sowed salt and transformed the snow-covered asphalt into a dense and muddy slush. Their destination was an old and shabby building, perhaps the most run down of the entire street. The front, which in better days had probably been a beautiful olive green, was now almost gray, and the snow stuck to the surface as if it was flypaper. The door was a simple brass frame supporting 2 dark and filthy glass doors. The intercom beside it had 12 buttons, and none of them marked with a name. All right, Einstein, said Odd. It's a dead end. No one's lived here for at least a century. We should try some of the buttons at random, or do you want to start straight back? They looked down the long street back to Rue de Provence and sighed. Then they mashed all the buttons simultaneously and stood waiting. Goodness knows if this still works, Jeremy grumbled, stabbing randomly at some of the buttons again. Then, from behind the glass doors, a thin voice could be heard. I'm coming. Always rushing about. Today's a holiday, you know. A key turned in the lock and the door shook, but still didn't open. Then Odd seized one of the door handles, yanked it towards himself, and found himself holding an impressively elderly lady between his arms. She was very short and very frail, like a little girl. The skin on her face, stretched tight over the cheeks, was almost transparent, and her little eyes looked tired but kind. Oh my! The old lady exclaimed, docilely liberating herself from Odd's embrace. You really are quite tasty, young man. Excuse me, madam, replied Jeremy, somewhat embarrassed. We're looking for someone from the firm of Brulette and Brothers. Is this the correct address? The old lady smiled. Aren't you a little young to be in the builder's trade? In any case, yes, you have the correct address. You better come inside. It's too cold to be doing much talking outside. But is Mr. Brulette here? She did not answer, limiting herself to inviting them inside. I've just made tea. Jeremy and Odd shared a fleeting glance. A cup of tea didn't seem like such a bad idea right now. The lady, Mary Lemoyne, lived in an apartment on the ground floor of the building, with several items of furniture that had seen better days, a prehistoric black and white television, and a radio the size of a sideboard that was crackling out music from the last century. The tea was faded in worn ceramic cups, along with a plate full of biscuits and of a decidedly dubious appearance. Odd inserted one in his mouth, and Jeremy saw his eyes bulge as he forced himself to chew. He decided not to try them. Perhaps they aren't as fresh as they used to be, admitted the old lady. It's not often that I have guests, you see. Jeremy decided that the time had come to explain the purpose of their visit. As I indicated beforehand, Miss Lemoyne, we are looking for Mr. Brulette. Of the firm Brulette and Brothers, appended the woman. Now, they haven't worked out of here for quite some time. Do you remember anything about them? Mary gave Jeremy a severe glare. For your information, young man, I have been the superintendent in this building for almost 20 years, and I have a photographic memory. If you thought I'd forget Philip, Jean-Jacques, and Jean-Pierre Brulette, then you're much mistaken. They had an office here on the first floor for 10 years, until... Care for another biscuit? With surprising agility, the old lady picked one of them up off the plate and threw it straight into Odd's mouth, who quickly turned purple and started coughing violently. Mary Lemoyne continued. As I was saying, they were here for 10 years before Jean-Pierre and Jean-Jacques died. An unfortunate work accident. Corinne, the girl who helped them with the accounting, told me that the two brothers were working on a scaffold. They didn't have many workers. It was a small firm, and the sad truth is that the scaffold collapsed. Philippe was the youngest brother, the kind of person who was always cheerful. But in just 6 months he had sold the firm and rented the offices out to Mr. Gaston. Now there was a gentleman, if I don't say so myself. There was this one occasion... And Philip? What happened to him? Jeremy cut in. Mary seemed somewhat annoyed by the interruption. He moved to a city in the south. He said he couldn't bring himself to stay here anymore. When did all this happen? What year? Mary sipped calmly at her tea, enjoying being the subject of their total attention. It seemed she was taking her time so as not to ruin the suspense. You two little boys are very strange. You come here on a Sunday afternoon to interrogate me about things that happened over a decade ago. In any case, it's been... Let me see. When was it that Philippe moved away? She suddenly turned to Odd. You are quite the smiley type and quite a gourmet. Are you sure you wouldn't care for another biscuit? Odd remained immobile with his lips sealed, fearful of finding another one lodged in the bottom of his throat. Jeremy decided to intervene in the interest of protecting his friend. Miss Lemoyne, he said in the most well-mannered tone he could manage. I apologize for asking this of you, but did Philip leave any remains by which we could contact him? I don't know, maybe a telephone number? Of course. He left his new address and telephone number so that we could arrange for his payments to be suspended, along with various other matters. Closing a business is a complicated affair, you know. There's a mountain of bureaucracy to overcome, suppliers to settle with, contracts that needed to be ended. And do you still have that address? Why are you interested? Jeremy bit his lip, trying to think of a quick excuse which at the same time would sound convincing. My friend, he said, indicating towards Odd, is Mr. Brulette's grandson, and he's never met his grandfather. At these words, the old lady rose from her chair and planted a rough kiss on each of Odd's cheeks. Philip's grandson! I never knew he had a son or a daughter. But yes, I can see the resemblance. You have his eyes. And how come you have never met your darling grandfather, young man? Jeremy kept improvising. Well, it's a very sad story. Philip's daughter, the mother of my friend, had to move to Paris and unfortunately has lost her memory. But she's told us so much about everything that... She told you? How can she if she's lost her memory? Jeremy had become entangled in his own story, and it was up to Odd to try and cut him free. Might I have another cup of tea, miss? He asked innocently. Thank you for being so kind, he added quickly. You know, this has always been my dream, to reunite the family, I mean. Mary Lemoyne's expression melted into a smile, and she seemed to cast aside any uncertainties. Of course, you poor young thing. I'll go looking for your grandfather's address. I've got an archive of all the old building tenants in the living room. It'll be somewhere in there. The old lady shuffled into another room and returned several minutes later, a crumpled slip of paper in her hand. Here it is. He doesn't live in the city anymore, but you can find him here. She pressed the scrap of paper into Odd's hands. When they were back outside, surrounded once more by the snow, Jeremy looked amusedly at Odd. Tell me the truth, were those biscuits really that horrible? You have no idea. Jeremy laughed heartily. Chapter 13. Eva Skinner, California, United States of America, January 9th. Are you all right? A woman's voice asked kindly. You've opened your eyes. You gave us quite a scare, a girl joined in. Eva Skinner was in the school infirmary, and floating in front of her were the concerned faces of Dr. Johann and her friend Susie. Eva opened her mouth but was unable to speak. Something within her was manipulating her like a marionette, something that had taken control of her mind. Xana was now giving the orders one at a time, to open the mouth, to articulate the language, to speak. It was all very complicated. Dr. Johann smiled. You fell ill suddenly at the concert, she said gently. Ill, thought Xana. He had never felt so good. He felt great. All he had to do was acclimatize to this new body and recover from the long and laborious journey he had begun as a digital fragment hiding at the bottom of the sea. He had become an internet virus, a video message relayed through a phone, and finally the music video at the concert, all to find the right person, Eva Skinner. Thankfully, you don't seem to be badly hurt. Your parents will be here shortly to take you home. Eva tried to speak again, and again she failed. It was a terrible effort. Let's leave her for now, the doctor told Susie. She needs to rest. The girl looked reproachfully at Eva. You better get better soon. I missed the end of the concert to be here. Now Eva found herself alone in the room. For Xana, this was a perfect opportunity to become better acquainted with his new body. He had to learn how to move and speak. He managed to take control of the eyes. Right, left, up, down. He tested the limits of his vision, looking from the far end of the bed up to the neon light set in the center of the long ceiling and from the window to the door. Now he had to consider the rest of the body. He concentrated and tried to move a finger, the index of the right hand. Nothing happened. Move the finger. You, the finger. Move. Please, finger. Damn it! The right fist abruptly clenched shut. Anger. That was the trick. Don't ask it to happen, just make it happen. Eva opened her mouth. Was his first word. It was a confused and strangled moan, but it was a start. Next, he wiggled all his fingers and toes. When he managed to raise the bedsheet, he realized he was making good progress. He rose to her feet and ended up face down on the floor. Lashing pain engulfed his body. Stupid, weak humans. Somehow or other, he managed to lift himself onto all fours. Then he stood up and tried to walk again. Fell down again, but this time his hands were ready to mitigate the blow. Try again. He got back onto his feet. This time he managed 2 steps before falling. Try again. Half an hour later, he had managed to walk the entire length of the room. Approaching the window, he opened it. The infirmary was on the 3rd floor and overlooked a relatively quiet road, where an old van was passing by, vomiting black smoke from its exhaust pipe. At the bottom of the road, a woman in pink overalls was jogging along, holding the leash of a small dog in her hand. Lisa considered for a moment the prospect of simply jumping down from the window. No, she decided. She couldn't risk breaking a bone. That was unacceptable. There was a gutter pipe attaching to the building's wall that came within half a meter of the window. Climbing down did not seem an impossible enterprise. She clambered onto the windowsill and took hold of the pipe, which emitted a metal groan. She quickly began to climb down, barefooted and dressed in only a hospital gown, her attention focused on the necessary motions. Hand, foot, hand, foot. When she was almost at the bottom, she allowed herself to fall and land on her back, sprawling out on the asphalt and feeling another flood of pain. Just how fragile was this body? "Did you just hurt yourself, darling?" asked the lady with the dog, rushing in her direction. Her graying hair was tied up in a ponytail, and her face was almost hidden behind a large pair of sunglasses. 2 wires could be seen emerging from her ears. "Are you in pain, baby?" She removed one of the earphones. "Why are you almost naked? You don't even have shoes. Wait here while I call someone." Of course, human beings often change their garments, and probably Eva's current ensemble was inappropriate. She considered her options. Then she rose to her feet and approached the woman. About 10 minutes later, Eva walked calmly away, wearing a pair of pink overalls several sizes too big for her. The arms and legs rolled up to prevent her from stumbling. Behind her, on the street corner, the small dog was barking desperately. Chapter 14, An Unexpected Journey, City of the Iron Tower, France, January 9th. It seemed that peace had finally returned to the Hermitage's living room. Yumi and Alita were chatting and smiling while Auric was sitting quietly on the couch. Every so often he flicked a popcorn kernel towards Kiwi, the scrappy little dog catching them in his mouth. Jeremy picked up the telephone receiver and motioned for silence. He dialed in the number they had been given. "Hello?" a deep voice answered on the third ring. "Hello, good afternoon to you. I'm looking for Mr. Philippe Brûlé." "Who might you be, then?" "My name is Jeremy. Jeremy Belpois. I wanted to talk to him regarding something from several years ago. I am a friend." "All right, I'll pass you on to him. Just be aware that he's quite deaf, so you'll need to speak up when you talk to him." The next person Jeremy heard was a man, wheezing tiredly as he spoke slowly into the phone. "Hello, who is this?" "Hello, sir, I can't hear you. Who did you say you were again?" "Hello, good day to you!" "Oh, that's better. I can hear you now. Carry on." "My name is Jeremy Belpois. I'm calling you from the city of the Iron Tower." "Ah, yes, but there's no need to yell quite that loud. Goodness me. Yes, I know that city quite well. I lived there for many years with my brothers. My word, that was a long time ago. People used to call us the 3 Brulettes. My. Mr. Philippe seemed to be losing himself in a whirlwind of memories. "I was looking for information about a man who taught at Caddick Academy by the name of Hopper." "Who?" "Hopper! Franz Hopper!" The old man's tone abruptly changed. Now he sounded hostile. "Nothing. I don't know anything." "But we believe you worked on his home, the Hermitage." "I've never known anyone by that name," Brulette repeated. "Kindly don't bother me again." And he hung up the phone. "Pleasant man," commented Jeremy, turning to face his friends. "But you know what, Mr. Brulette? If you won't speak to us on the phone, then we'll just come speak face to face with you." "What do you mean? Where would we be going?" asked Ulrich, his face turning pale. Jeremy gave the name of the small coastal city where Mr. Brulette resided. Then he added, "It's currently 5:30. If we take the first train, we'll arrive there around 9 o'clock. We can then return on the last train around midnight and arrive back here at 3 in the morning. Then we can catch 5 hours sleep and arrive at school tomorrow rested and ready." "You've completely lost it this time, Einstein," replied Ulrich incredulously. "You want us to travel halfway across France because an old man hung up on you?" "You don't understand," Jeremy responded. "He knew something. As soon as I heard the name of Alita's father, he ended the conversation." "Maybe we should have offered to pay him," suggested Odd. Nobody laughed. If he really did work on the Hermitage, he might be able to give us useful information about this house." Yumi was resting on the couch, a drink in her hand. "But as you said, Jeremy, if he worked on the Hermitage, all I know for certain is that his name is on some sacks of cement in the basement. And what you're proposing is a really long journey. If only we could postpone it for a few days." "Actually, I think it's a fantastic idea," commented Odd. "I was beginning to get bored anyway." Eventually, Ulrich sighed. "In the end, Alita should make the decision. After all, it's her house we're talking about." The girl in question, who until this point had seemed somewhat distant, rose to her feet. "Well, I can tell you what I'm going to do. If Jeremy says this is serious, then I'm going to go and speak to this Mr. Brulette. I know it might be hard for you to understand, but my father is gone. This house, with its secret passages and everything else, is the only connection that still binds him to me. If there is someone who can tell me more about the Hermitage and help me remember it, then I'm going to go to the ends of the earth to meet them. And I'm coming with you, Jeremy joined in. You'd make a useless knight in shining armor, Odd teased him, landing a friendly punch on his shoulder. If Aelita goes, we all go. They arrived at the station a minute before their train departed, 5 children heavily wrapped in clothes to protect themselves from the blizzard. Fortunately, they did not have to buy tickets. Jeremy had already taken care of that online. Wait for us, yelled Odd as the railroad inspector, who, wrapped in a large coat, was making sure no one was left on the platform. The train's doors closed behind them an instant after Ulrich had shoved Aelita up the gangway and jumped on board as well. Wow, what luxury! Odd exclaimed. I've never traveled on a TGV before. Jeremy smiled. You can thank the school's credit card. Wait, what? Well, the tickets were very expensive and I didn't have the money to pay for them, explained Jeremy, hunching his shoulders. So I hacked into Caddock's computers and took the details of the credit card Principal Delmas uses for scholastic expenses. Have you gone mad? Aelita reproached him. The principal will notice what you've done. No, he won't. I filed the payment under the section in unforeseen expenses, headed My Daughter Sissy. Ulrich looked severely at him. Jeremy, this is called theft. Come on, guys, I only took that money as a loan, and I have every intention of repaying them down to the last euro. Odd laughed scornfully, his fists resting on his hips. Look at our little whiz kid, always acting so serious, and then we discover that underneath it all he's a talented data pirate. Aelita was not smiling. I'm not happy with this, she commented icily. Okay, perhaps I made a mistake, Jeremy admitted, but no one will notice, and tomorrow I'll make arrangements for my parents to foot the bill, all right? No, we'll each pay our share. They settled into their reserved places, 4 armchairs separated by a small table, and a 5th seat on the other side of the central corridor. At this late hour, the carriage was completely deserted except for them. The sleek, silver, high-speed train picked up speed through the city suburbs, the silence disturbed only by the breathing of the carriage's heating systems. Beyond the windows, the city was giving way to a lunar landscape, a mantle of snow draped over everything. Trees, fields, the drooping roofs of farmhouses, and the sky was inflamed, dark with the promise of more snow. At least we're traveling south towards the heat, observed Ulrich. And that gives us 3 hours to relax. The ideal opportunity for a nap, concluded Odd, rolling his heavy jacket into a pillow and stretching out on his seat. The loudspeakers crackled out the name, Marseille Saint-Charles, their destination. The terminus was a huge structure with a glass and steel overhead roof. The train rolled in calmly, catching its breath after having run at full speed halfway across France. Odd checked some notes he had in his pocket. Is the place where we need to go far? Place de Lynch. It's not very far, about 2 kilometers. The station was at the top of a long and sloping street. High above, on the summit of the opposite hill, they could see the church of Notre Dame de la Garde, the basilica's towering belfry standing alongside a great dome. Ulrich was right. The climate here in Provence was noticeably hotter than in their home city, even if there was a strong and damp wind blowing in off the sea. That way, towards the Panier, decided Jeremy, consulting a map he had printed off the internet before they had left. It's the most notorious part of the city. Are you serious? Asked Odd, alarmed by that revelation. Jeremy laughed. No, that is, it used to have a really bad reputation, but nowadays it's a tourist trap. Actually, in summer it must have been a very attractive suburb. Tall and narrow villas with multicolored facades leaned against one another for support, and the lanes were so narrow that one could not walk down them with arms outstretched. But now it was evening and the streets were dark. The children kept checking over their shoulders, fearful that someone could be following them. Then they had to confront the Monte des Écoles, a long flight of stairs driven between the buildings. It is so beautiful, Aelita commented in admiration. Yeah, but couldn't they have provided a beautiful escalator for us to ride up on? This sucks, Odd lamented, panting as they climbed towards the top. Oh, come on, Ulrich teased him. Aren't you supposed to be the one with the agility of a cat? Eventually, they reached the end of the climb and descended down the other side, emerging into the Place de Lynch, facing towards the Notre Dame de la Garde. The church crowned the summit of an outcrop far higher than the hill they had just labored over. Between them and it, the land fell off into the harbor, which sparkled with reflections of the city's lights. In the distance, they could just hear the sound of waves breaking on the shore. That way, said Jeremy, indicating a side street. They arrived in front of a tall house. It was painted a faded orange and had several green, shuttered balconies. Affixed beside the door was a brass plate, Francois and Laurette Brulette, and beneath that, Philippe Brulette. Francois was an impressively large and powerful-looking man somewhere in his 30s. with a shaved head and gleamed in the lamplight. "What do you want? What do you want?" Jeremy recognized the cavernous voice that he had spoken to that afternoon on the telephone. He summoned his courage and declared, "We would like to speak to Mr. Philippe, if he is home. I telephoned earlier today." The man did not say anything. His immense tonnage was now blocking the entire width of the door, and he showed no sign of being willing to invite them in. "Please, this is very important to us," Jeremy insisted. "We've come a very long way in order to see him." "And why should that concern me?" Alita was about to intervene when a female voice called out from behind the man. "Who is it, love?" "5 little kids." "And you're not letting them in, right? Ask them if they've had dinner." The man snorted, then looked at the children one by one, peering down from his great height. "Have you had dinner?" he asked grumpily. "No, actually," confessed Odd, who was hungry as usual. "Then I'll prepare some sandwiches," the thoughtful woman replied from inside. Grudgingly, Francois moved from the door and allowed them to pass. They were made comfortable in a small but cozy dining room. The table was still laid, and the lingering smell of a delightful roast dinner whetted the children's appetites. When Laurette arrived with the sandwiches, the 5 young guests literally attacked the tray. "These are perfect, lady, just fantastic," said Odd, who was almost choking on a rasher of ham. The woman smiled indulgently. "It's nothing at all." Then she sat at the table with them, watching while they ate. "But tell me, what can you want of us at this hour? Are you alone, or is someone accompanying you?" Yumi decided it was better to lie, so as not to arouse her suspicion. "Yes, our teacher," she said quickly. "Today is the last day of our vacation. We wanted to take advantage of it to speak with Mr. Philippe. It's very important. We're hoping that he can help us trace someone." "One of Aelita's relatives," added Jeremy, indicating towards the friend in question. "Please, could you call him for us?" "There's no need, as he's right here," said a voice from behind them. Philippe Roulette was a man of around 60 years old, of the same dimensions as his son but with less muscle tone. His hands were those of a worker, big and calloused. "Dad, these kids were looking for you," declared Francois. "Those that called earlier today, I'll wager. Hopper and company." Mr. Philippe sat and rested his elbows on the table. I had the feeling I wouldn't get rid of you. Easily," he sighed. "That's because it's really important, Mr. Brulette. Please believe us." Philippe scrutinized them at length, stopping when his eyes rested on Aelita. "I remember that Professor Hopper had a daughter much like you. You could be her twin sister, even though today she would be at least twice your age." "Actually, Aelita's the professor's niece," Jeremy quickly intervened. "She's the daughter of his, sister." The others looked at him, tense, but said nothing. When Jeremy got going with one of his inventions, it was difficult to predict where it would end. "Yes, that could be it," the man rumbled. "Same eyes, same hair. Francois, get me a beer, would you? A bitter, perhaps?" Why did you hang up on me today when I mentioned the name Hopper?" Jeremy asked abruptly. "Because... oh well, it's been long enough, I guess." Philippe took a glass offered by his son, savored a sip of the beer, and began to speak. "I don't remember the exact year. At the time, I was still working with my brothers up north on our farm. If I'm honest, business wasn't particularly good at the time. But then, one day, we were contacted by a man who wanted us to take on a big job, an important job, to renovate part of a factory." "A factory on an island?" asked Yumi. Philippe nodded. "We were paid well for the work we did, too much even. In exchange, the man required us to maintain absolute secrecy about what we were doing. The government was involved, you understand, or at least that's what he told us. He never revealed his name to me, and the company that was paying into our account didn't exist. I checked with the Chamber of Commerce, yet the money kept coming, punctual and plentiful, and we were in no condition to refuse it." He sipped at his beer, seemingly staring at a point in the distance. Then he continued. "We had to go to the site blindfolded, in some vans with tinted glass windows, like in the movies. And once inside, we were not allowed out of the room that we had been assigned to. None of us ever understood what was being done in that factory, or what we were being paid to set up. I remember there was a lift, and rooms that were being prepared for some strange pieces of electrical equipment, I think. In any case," there was another pause. "The next year, the same man recalled us and introduced us to Franz Hopper. He was a serious kind of man, but nice enough, and he had this little girl that Damn, it seems to be that her name was Aelita as well. The room seemed to turn cold, but Aelita quickly intervened. You mean Eloida, my cousin? Eloida. It's possible. Anyway, Hopper had moved into the city to work at a nearby school, a sort of high school, and he wanted us to renovate this little old villa that he'd given a strange name to. The Hermitage? There you go. Bravo. It was the same conditions. Take the cash, keep your mouth shut. We finished the work. Hopper was satisfied. And eventually the mysterious man paid us. That's all there was to it. That's all? Protested Odd. Mr. Philippe, be honest, Ulrich pressed him, smiling conspiratorially. It wasn't just a simple renovation, correct? We've seen the secret passage that connects the Hermitage to the factory. Philippe shrugged his shoulders, irritated. I promised to never say anything. But this is important. And I made a promise. The government was involved, and if it wasn't government, it was still someone very dangerous. I didn't want any trouble then, and I can't imagine myself wanting any now. Aelita stood up and approached him. But now my uncle has died, and I've got nothing left to remember him by, she said in a weak voice. And how do you expect me to help? We thought, intruded Jeremy, that is to say, we believed that you could help us learn something else about the professor. Lauret, who, like Francois, had returned from clearing and washing the plates, smiled. Come on, Philippe, isn't it possible for you to tell them anything? These are just children. What could they do to you? Mr. Brulette sighed and eventually surrendered. That's as may be, Lauret. Nice reasoning. But in return, I'd like another glass of bitter. Then he turned to face the children and resumed speaking. In fact, there is one more thing I can tell you without violating my promises. Hopper came after me some time later, but this time the nameless man was not with him. It must have been about 10 years ago, but I remember it well. Hopper asked a personal favor of me. I had to return to the Hermitage and wall up a section of the house, so as to create a hidden room invisible from the outside. I told him it was a pointless job because someone could easily find it by comparing the house against the plans and elevations in the public records. He answered that he would take responsibility for that problem. He seemed rather frightened, and he offered to pay me, not as well as the other man had, but a more than reasonable amount, so I agreed. He had a secret room built in the Hermitage? An incredulous Jeremy replied. Cool, whispered Odd. But why? What use could it have been to him? Yumi asked, skeptical. Philippe Roulette squeezed his eyes, as if trying to seize hold of a faraway image long faded with time. The last time I saw Franz Hopper was in the summer of that year. He'd become very thin, consumed with his work. I always suspected that he was more than the simple school teacher he kept insisting to be. I had just dropped by to collect my payment and to pick up some tools I had left behind, and then he suddenly begged me to leave, as if he was in a great hurry. Before saying goodbye to him, however, I posed the exact same question. Professor, I asked, do you mind telling me the purpose of a room that nobody can enter? He smiled mysteriously and replied, to protect it, and as such I've left behind a map that only the right person can find. They all turned instinctively to face Aelita. And now, kids, that really is the end of my story. None of them wished to hang around in the city, not when they had made such an incredible discovery. There was a secret room in the Hermitage, and a map left behind for a specific person, who most likely was the same person who no longer had any memories of her past life, let alone where a map might be hidden. To the station? Jeremy proposed, as soon as the door of the Brulette residence closed behind them. Orc agreed quickly. Let's hit the road. They quickly retraced their steps along the deserted streets, almost running. Aelita trailed behind the main group by several paces. She wanted to have a little bit of space, and so the others did not disturb her. They reached St. Charles Station at just a few minutes before 11. Keep going, Jeremy exhorted them. If we take the train due to depart now, we'll arrive back at the house at 2 instead of 3. That gives us 1 more hour to search for the room. The TGV train was already at the platform, standing beneath the illuminated departures arrivals board. The locomotives at either end were powered up, and over the station loudspeakers a voice was inviting passengers to board. The children sprang forward, sprinting towards the long metal serpent. They leapt inside, the doors closed with a sonorous ding-dong, and the train stirred into motion, taking them back to the house. That's the second time that we've only made it by the skin of our teeth, Odd judged. Uh-oh, Jeremy murmured. We've got a little problem. What? We haven't changed our booking. Our tickets were for the midnight train, not this earlier service. Are you afraid they might make us pay a penalty? Asked Ulrich, laughing. No, but we won't have seats reserved for us. Yumi checked inside the carriage. It was deserted. Looks to me like we're the only ones riding this train tonight. Let's just sit down here. If someone arrives, we'll just move to another carriage.
Chronicles Session 2 has ended.
Oh.
Wow, perfect timing.
Yeah.
Chronicles Session 2 has ended.
So I guess we're not at that scene yet. That'll be tomorrow.
Timing.
Your favorite scene. You talk about that scene so much, Flower.
Yeah.
Talked about it like maybe a couple times. No, I think I have talked about it quite a bit.
You've talked about it the most. It's of all the scenes, it's probably the one you've mentioned the most.
It's the scene in Chronicles.
Yes. Now I got everyone curious.
They'll have to come back tomorrow to find out more.
Ooh. Until then. Well, except the after show, but yeah.
Until when?
Then.
Wait, we're supposed to end the live stream? I thought we were just gonna sit here for a bunch of hours till the next one.
Ah, okay. Yeah. We can do that.
I mean, I don't really have much to talk about. Most of my grievances were brought up in the intermission and
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did have that bit where like Jeremy calls, he's like, "Yo, I'm looking for Franz Hopper." No. Okay, no, he's not literally looking for him. He's
never heard of him.
And then they're like, "Well, frick this. We're gonna go to his house and knock on his door and ask these things." And that's literally what they do.
FBI, open up.
You're looking for someone who haven't been here for almost a decade, Sonny. Why are you asking me so many questions?
You have Xana Eva Skinner, and you're gonna be dealing with Xana Eva Skinner all the way up until book 3.
Jesus.
She is fun.
Wait.
As Xana possessed Eva Skinner is actually kind of fun.
So we finally got the fanfiction headcanon of Xana becoming a teenage girl. This is it. Can't believe it.
Yes, Xana will take over the world.
Why is it an American teenager? It's just so silly. Like,
it is.
Because the show didn't have enough white people.
I mean,
what we got? An Italian, a German, a French. I mean, I guess technically Japanese aren't white, so. What is Aelita? Aelita's the French, isn't she?
Aelita
is Swiss, technically.
Aelita.
It's a little ambiguous, but I heard, like, word of God said she was technically born in America during the conspiracy, like, when they were working on Project Carthage.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. That's not your ethnic background.
Yeah. I think it's Swiss, though. I think Hopper and Anthea are Swiss, but I'm not positive on that, so.
Is it bad that when it comes to the whole Aelita being American thing, I just kind of employ death of the author because it's like,
Well, yeah, but like it's like Odd being Italian, but he's from Canada.
Yeah.
Odd's Italian. You can't deny that.
True.
But he was probably born in Canada.
True.
So one might think he simply just poofed into existence on the whim of his sister's dreams for a brother that they can all collectively pick on, instead of picking on each other.
I mean, yeah, isn't that how it works?
No,
It is
Wazy.
French.
I think you need to go back to high school anatomy.
Darn.
Or maybe get the birds and the bees discussion with your parents.
I never had that. Can you please explain it to me?
Well, Wazy, you see, when a simp and an e-girl like each other a whole
Whoa.
lot.
Whoa. Tell me more.
They form the ultimate being capable of producing life and just pop out
Wait.
a being known as a human baby.
That doesn't sound right. I don't think a simp is capable of that.
Well, no, they formed one collective mind. They're a singular being.
Oh, so it's like Fusion in Dragon Ball Z.
Yes.
Okay, I understand. Yes, and yes, a simp is very capable of that.
Cameron, this is the 4th chapter named Ava Skinner that we're gonna
Yeah.
listen to Flower
I
read.
guess they're so short that, and it's literally just it's about Eva Skinner, and that's all it is. So why not? Why give him a different name? To be fair, it also helps like differentiate between the Warriors shenanigans and Eva and Xana's shenanigans. So
I guess that's fair.
it would have been nice if it had been like Eva
Now-
Skinner and like the adventures of like Eva Skinner First Steps or something like that.
Now,
Eva Skinner and
what do you think Eva's short for? Do you think it's short for evolution?
Oh my gosh.
Bam!
Dark
I'll
Xana.
see myself out.
yeah, no, you're fired. Get out of here.
Fine, I'll take Jenny with me. You don't get you
Hold on.
either
Wait,
get
hold on.
the
Hold
whole
on.
New England gang or you get none of them.
No, can't we just keep
Ooh.
her and let you? Darn.
Nobody tell Cam what they do to our boy.
Wait, what?
Nobody tell Cam what Chronicles did to our boy.
You know, sometimes life do be like that.
It is indeed.
No, so tomorrow, if everything goes according to plan, we'll finish book 1. We're almost at the end.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed we were at like 150 pages. I'm like, oh, that was
Yeah, I
fast.
have to wonder if you've gotten enough sessions recorded.
I've got up to 5 sessions recorded, and I've started doing 6. Worst case scenario, if I'm behind, you actually get to hear me do it live.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Fuck it, we're gonna do it live!
I'm hoping we don't have to get to that.
We're going
'Cause
live.
I can hear the unexpected journey. I kept getting interrupted, and I had to redo the chapter every time. So that was like, I think my 3rd or 4th take, and I could hear it in my voice that I was like straining it. So like, there's a point. There's a reason I'm not doing these live.
Well, let's hope that we manage to just get things okay and keep up.
Yeah, we should be good for like next week.
Oh, that's
Next
good.
week, and I'm already mostly done with the week after. So, yeah. So I've gotten ahead already. I'm almost done with book 2. 2 more books. I still need to finish reading book 3 just on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost done with book 3. And book 4 is like new territory.
So that'll be exciting for everybody.
What's with the laugh?
I don't know.
Did I say you could laugh? Did Wazy say you could laugh?
Duncan say you could laugh?
Well, yes,
Whoa.
because I'm his right-hand man.
How many times do I have to tell you that I still rank above you in his hierarchy?
I'm just not gonna have this discussion with you, Wazy.
Listen,
I'm just not gonna have this discussion with you, man.
I was the one to first inherit his power, his guidance, and it was a beautiful thing. If it weren't
But
for
what did
me,
you do
you
with
wouldn't even be
Wazy?
where you are.
You squandered
I
it.
spread.
You squandered it.
No,
Until
I
came
spread
along.
his word. I spread his word, and now look how things have gotten.
Yeah,
all
and it
thanks
wouldn't be this way if I hadn't shown up. Alrighty. I think this is a lovely place to end. We obviously don't have a lot to
Yeah.
discuss today. So
Yeah.
we will be back
Happened in the-
tomorrow
Wait.
for
Fairy godparents. Okay, now go.
we will be back tomorrow for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chapters. Oh my god.
Last.
Here we go.
They're pretty short. We're almost at the end of this book.
So we will see you guys there.
Yes.
Until next time.
Peace out, Girl Scouts.